One of the things you said that really surprised me is that pyramids were built in Peru possibly hundreds of years before they were built in Egypt. Is that true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact,
That's crazy.
there's one that's now pushing 6,000 BCE. Like, that's thousands of years before the stuff in Egypt. And that one's called Waka Prieta. And it was not an Egyptian pyramid. But it was a pyramid, and it was thousands of years before.
What do you think is the motivation to build a pyramid? The fact that it can withstand the elements structurally, that kind of thing? Is it, why do humans build pyramids? And why do they build it in all kinds of different locations in the world?
Well, my root answer is pretty boring, really. A lot of people ask me, why are there pyramids all over the planet? How is that? Is that a coincidence? I mean,
Yeah.
I think that when people wanted to build a big building without rebar or cement, you end up building something with a fat base that goes up to a skinny top, and that turns into a pyramid. Any kid who's playing with blocks on the floor builds a couple towers, and his brother knocks him down. And if he wants one that's going to stay and be tall, he ends up making something with a fat base and a tiny top. And I think that building something big and tall together is one of those human things. Like, we built that will be here after we're gone. People remember who we were. We are all, if there's any human commonality, it's fear of our own deaths, and that we were nothing and no one will ever remember us. I think that the first big monuments like that were probably a group of people saying, we're going to do something that people will remember forever. Now, that being said, you remember we were just talking about Waka Prieta, and this one that's almost 6,000 BC now is the first one. That one's a funny case. We just talked about all these lofty goals, but actually, I'm pretty sure that Waka Prieta's first pyramid was about capping a smelly pile of trash. I think everybody piled up their trash in the middle of town, and it stunk. It's on the coast. It stunk like fish. And somebody said, if we just bury this thing with dirt, it won't smell anymore. And then it was a big mound where people could get up and talk to everybody. And then said, well, it's squishy. If we cap it with clay, then it will really not smell. I really think that the very first pyramids in Peru were about trash management. Talk about deflating, huh?
Yeah, but then they probably saw it and they were impressed and humbled by the sort of the enormity of the construction, and then they're like, "Oh, we should." Maybe the next guy thought maybe we should keep building these kinds of things.
Yeah. In not to jump ahead, but in North America, where they also made pyramids, there's this interesting evolution where there were these piles of shells along rivers and along the coastlines. People ate a lot of shells. That was an easy thing to collect and eat. So these piles of shells would be near communities, and they probably became landmarks, but eventually they started burying their dead inside those too. Probably, again, about stink and about, well, we don't want the dogs to eat them. Maybe we'll put them in the middle of the shell pile. But then that all of a sudden became this, like, that's where my grandfather's body is. That's where great-grandfather's body is. And all of a sudden people started being attached to place, not just for the resources, but for the shared memories of their ancestors. So when the very first pyramid was built in Ohio area by the Adena people, it was built out of dirt, but it's full of bodies. And I think it's an echo of a old thing where they used to be putting bodies in shell mounds.